we are.
Yes.
Again.
It is where we are.
Where we thought we would be.
Where do you think we are? There's a good question with the Bengals team. That was a bad loss. That felt awful. That felt absolutely horrible as a Bengals fan. At first, like the first half, I'm thinking, okay, we're all right. We're kind of in this. We're only down by 4.
Then we've talked about before. The other teams figure it out, and the Bengals don't.
I don't think we have the personnel to figure it out at this point. I really don't.
See, you felt like that, and I felt like even though the score never suggested they were out of it, it never felt like they were in it.
And you know what? Bingo, 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 bingo,
yeah,
bingo.
It just never felt like they had a chance.
Even when they were only down by 4 at the half, I thought they've lost this game. They don't even look like they're in the same league, and that team did not even look that good. I'm talking about the Broncos did not look that good.
No.
The Bengals just looked really bad.
I think the main reason the Broncos didn't look that good is they don't have a very good quarterback. He's okay.
Case Keenum is just a guy.
But compared to the other quarterbacks that the Bengals have played and the quarterbacks that have just throttled the Bengals, he was one guy that makes mistakes.
Yes.
And the Bengals were able to, they didn't take advantage of the mistakes, but they were able to get off the field on third down because he overthrew people, underthrew people.
The rookies looked great, but yet Case Keenum, a seasoned veteran, was the one that struggled against the Bengals.
Goodness gracious. All right, let me just say this. Let's welcome everyone into the Flying Pigskin podcast. If you've listened so far, you know that we try to talk to you about more than just what happened on the field, but all the stuff around it too. I'm Tanya O'Rourke, and I'm literally just a fan. I'm joined by people who know a whole lot more than I do, including, of course, the lovely and talented John Popovich.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, I don't know if I know much more than you. I watch as a fan too. I mean, I think that's the way you have to watch it and try to appreciate it, and then all of a sudden, then just be depressed about it because all you want as a fan, Scott, is hope. You at least want.
And that's Scott Kaiser, let me just say.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Going into every game feeling like you've got a chance. If it's a 50-50 chance, because you're one of the teams competing, that's all you want. Going in knowing that it's not even a 10% chance that you're going to win is the worst feeling in the world.
Do you know? Yes, because I thought to myself, well, we're not going to win this game going into the game. So I'm like, doing stuff around the house, decorating for Christmas. But I thought to myself, I wonder how bad it's going to be. And the first half I thought, okay, the defense looks pretty good. They've gotten to the quarterback. They've stuffed him a couple times.
I think that was the most encouraging thing. I even exclaimed, how are they actually playing defense for once? Because it's stayed low scoring. It was really weird that they couldn't replicate that any other time except for
or
this
even
week.
in the second half.
Yeah.
Replicate that in the second half. So here's something I'll just throw out there real quickly. So Jeff Driscoll, if anyone thought he was the second coming, maybe not. He had 236 yards, folks. Does that surprise you?
A lot of that came in garbage time.
I understand. This is my point. Like if you're just looking at statistics, box scores, you think, are you kidding?
Yeah.
They were coming at him pretty good too.
Oh, he was on his butt 4 times?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it was kind of like what I said last week. He looked good in spurts, so he can look good when he comes in a pinch, but they got a week of tape on him, can hone in on him, know that he's got to be the man, and it's a lot uglier when you're in that situation as the starter.
I think the biggest thing, though, was every time they lined up, they committed a penalty. And it was like, a motion penalty. I mean, the simplest ones is knowing the count and knowing when you could go.
I was going to ask you, is that having anything to do with the fact that there's a different guy under center?
Could be. The cadence could change. But you would think a week's practice would have taken care of that. When you bring a guy in new to a game, you expect those kind of things. But, you've practiced with him this week. You would think that they'd be used to it, the rhythm.
You want to talk about things that frustrate you as a fan when you're week 13 and you're talking about guys committing, just the mental errors of false starts and stuff like that. That drives you nuts because that's stuff that when you see it earlier in the season, things start off slow. But by this point in the season, having those type of penalties is just mind-numbing.
It was the most boring first half of football.
It was not good football.
It was so quiet. The stadium was quiet. The announcers were It was interesting to me, and I tried to look at this as open-minded as I possibly could. But, something bad would happen to the Bengals, like A.J. Green goes down. That's bad. But something much more minor than that, like, oh, another devastating blow for the Bengals. And then, here were the Broncos didn't have any points on the board, and they're like, oh, they're looking pretty good. I'm thinking, really? So it's so interesting to me to listen to those guys and think they're, at that point they were all even. It was zip. No one had any score. And I thought, but for the Bengals, everything was devastating. And for the Broncos, everything was like, well, there's something to build on right there. They're really moving in the right direction.
And that probably comes in with the narrative they have, that they know the Broncos are a team that is on the rise and the Bengals are fading.
Fading?
Yeah.
Fading?
And so
they're on
they
life support.
But I mean, what you're doing is you're just following that exact script.
Yep.
And that you probably talked about in the pregame shows, and the Bengals are hurt, this and that, and everything that it's going to happen is going to go wrong against the Bengals. But it has, so I mean, I can't argue with it.
No, they're not wrong.
Yeah.
AJ Green, did he even have a catch yesterday before he went out?
I think he had
How
two,
is he?
maybe.
Anyone know?
I don't know, but if you're the Bengals, why waste time bringing him back? I mean, he's
no.
gonna want to get out there,
Let
but
him heal.
the rest of the season's a wash.
No,
There's
he didn't
no
have
reason to
nothing. He didn't make the board.
Re-aggravates the same injury, and I mean, if there was anything to be excited about coming into this game, it was the return of him, and then boom. Deflated as soon as he goes out with the same injury again. You're like, all right, well, that's it for the day. Pack it in, because there's just nothing left as far as excitement.
Nothing. And Tyler Boyd was fun to watch, and he did a nice job. I
mean, he's
felt.
been good for most of the season, and his development, I guess, if at the end of the year when we're picking out bright spots, which we'll have to at some point.
I'll be gone those weeks.
He'll definitely be one of them, but I mean, that's not why you're tuning in as a fan to see, more Tyler Boyd. You're tuning in hoping to see AJ back to his old self, and then he goes down, and it's.
But when he went out, I thought, geez, really? God. It's just, you're right. There's nothing left. If there was any air in that balloon of hope, done.
No, you say get good. Hopefully you're well. We have to get our tight ends together to get that going. You need Dalton healthy. You're starting to already. You're thinking about next year. I mean, it's like what we were doing with the Reds in May.
Sure. It's true.
The day after opening day. Yeah.
At some point you just fold it up, say, okay, let's see what the other guys can do. And no coach wants to admit that, but they only have one home game left.
Right.
So, and they only had 44,000 there yesterday.
And, I mean, you really do got to figure out what you got going forward with some of those other guys. If they're going to be part of the team moving forward, or if you're just going to clean shop and just get everybody out of there, because they're not playing for necessarily anything. So you need to see who's going to still be in there, who's still fighting, who's still playing hard,
who's still fighting.
So these next few weeks, evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody's on notice. I mean, Tyler Boyd did say all the right things in the locker room about giving it his all and showing that he's a dog and playing out there. You like to hear that, and you hope that he does continue to play like that. But some other guys need to be fired up like that to play as hard as they possibly can.
Yeah, he and Joe Mixon seem like the only guys on offense.
Yeah, I mean,
who
they're
are
playing for
it.
their jobs, some of them, and you wouldn't know sometimes watching some of the play.
And part of me feels bad for Joe Mixon because his statistics, I feel like all year have been kind of depressed, and that's because they can't stick with a run. They're always behind, so they got to start throwing the ball early. And so poor Joe Mixon. But I mean, I do feel like he should have had a banner season. He had a good season. We have 3 weeks left, but he had a good season. And I just feel like
well, some of that's not his fault. I mean, he did get hurt, and so that you take away 3 weeks from that. And, I still think he's on the upswing. He's one of those arrow up guys if you're just looking at the team as a whole. But I bet you if you ask Joe Mixon, he would trade any of his stats for more wins because he seems like that type of guy. I mean, I don't think he's worried about the stat line as he is the wins and losses. So
I go back to what we were talking about just before we started, which was what do you do in the coaching position, and is this going to be wholesale change or not? And in fact, we actually had a caller this week. I know it's exciting.
Did we?
We did.
Somebody called the line.
Someone called the line and asked a question, and I think we should listen to that and key off of that.
Hey guys, it's Matt from Cheviot. I wanted to pose a question to you. Watching the game, I think it's becoming more and more apparent to everyone, including Marvin, that his reign is almost over. And my biggest question is our next best answer going to be Hue Jackson? Or are we going to see the Bengals do kind of what the Reds did and do an extensive, exhaustive search for a new head coach? Or are we watching all these games knowing that after this season, the most optimism we get to have is Hue Jackson? Thank you, guys. Love the show.
By the way, thank you, Matt, from
Cheviot.
Chevlaw.
Yeah.
But do you honestly think Marvin's gone?
No. I've said
mean,
it
how do
multiple
we-
times this year. I mean, until it says Marvin's been fired, I won't believe it. The dude just signed a 3-year deal.
Well, it was a 2-year deal.
Was it two?
But Ian Rappaport reported over the weekend that the second year is at the club's option.
Aha.
And I didn't know about that. I don't
Me
think that
neither.
was ever really revealed in the past. Maybe it was, but I hadn't seen it. I was thinking it was pretty much a 2-year deal, and they were stuck with it.
I thought it was a 3-year deal, and the third year was the option year.
See,
but
I always thought it was a 1-year deal till about a week or two ago when you
That's
mentioned that it was a
sooner.
2-year.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's just say that we are at the end of the Marvin Lewis era as a coach. I still have heard so many people say he should be our general manager. Move him up to the front office and bring in someone else. Do you like that idea?
No. I think
Okay.
I think it's time to make a change.
Yeah.
And I think it's time to make a big change. And that Hue Jackson isn't the answer. Moving Marvin to general manager. Maybe he's retained as a consultant of some sort, an advisor. My guess is he still likes to coach and wouldn't mind doing that because he seems like getting out there on defense is still something he enjoys doing. I think it's time to make that look outside. I mean, I remember when Forrest Gregg left, and they went and got a guy named Sam White, and everybody goes, oh, my God, he's coaching at Indiana. But he knew he was a bright mind. He was bringing something different to the table than what the Bengals had at that time. And, it was still Paul's idea to bring in Sam White, but he knew that it was going to change the whole culture of the team, and that's what you have to do right now. Marvin has done his thing. He did a great job, whether people want to believe it or not.
I think he did a great job.
He raised this the level, the professional level of the club to a greater degree. But I think his time is gone. It's time to move on.
To go back to Matt, you know what? You don't want to do what the Reds did because the Reds didn't do it the right
They
way.
took the safe choice.
Well, no, but I'm talking about they've been, quote unquote, in rebuild mode for the past few years, and they've delayed their own turnaround because they half-stepped it. They didn't take all the moves that they should have done. They should have cleaned house, but they held on to a few guys because they thought, well, maybe they can turn it around here. Maybe they can. And they held on to Brian Price a little too long, and then they had to get rid of him. Don't be the Reds. If you're going to do it right and just push everybody out. Don't move Marvin up to be a GM and put a Hue in there. It's more of the same. You've got a clean house, and Marvin can have some role within the organization, but he can't be picking the players, and you can't have Hue Jackson coaching the team. Bring all new faces in if you're going to do it. Don't half-step it.
Okay, but don't you guys think, like, you keep hearing Hue Jackson, he's the man in waiting.
That's
Why?
fine.
Why?
I mean, it can be rumored, and that's just what people are going to say until he's in the job, and then you can complain about it. But I mean, if as long as it's just a rumor, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it being
why
a
do we
rumor.
continue to have this rumor? It doesn't seem like it should be legitimate, Papo.
I don't know who brings it up, but I do see it very often on Twitter, and I'm thinking, who's even thinking this? I mean, that guy, he had some success in Oakland. I don't want to say he was a failure there, but he didn't do anything in Cleveland, and you're saying Cleveland is better since he left. They talk about there was chaos in the Cleveland organization while he was there. To me, that may cement the deal, saying he just doesn't run an organization very well.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think Hue Jackson, and as you said, if you're gonna get rid of the Marvin Lewis era and put that in the rearview mirror, Hue Jackson is part of that era.
Oh, yeah.
A big part of it.
And I really do think this is key, that as a fan and fans of this team need something to be excited about. You have lost so much of your fan base. Whereas just 3 years ago, a mere 2 or 3 years ago, you saw Bengals stuff everywhere in this town. They were a fun team to watch. They were interesting. And now it's like, bah, same old crap. It's just the Bengals, and they just are terrible. And, you know, it's that misery. You saw.
It's the 90s again.
Yeah, and I saw paper bags on people's heads yesterday.
I did see that.
Did you see that? I was like,
yeah.
oh, man. Of course.
I thought, oh, it's gotten that bad that they've brought back the paper
it's
bags.
It's not, but I think they, you know, it's not as bad as that, is it?
I mean, that would give people hope, though, too. If you do, I mean, even if they strike out on the next guy, if you clean house and say, you know what, look, we're just going to put everything Marvin in the rearview mirror, people would have hope for whoever they brought in just because it was a new face. Just do that to give people something to say, you know what, they're trying something new. Give them credit for that, because people will do that. People will say, it's new. It's not Marvin. It's not the same old. So I've got hope. Even if it's, you know, not somebody that they're super excited about on paper, it would be somebody new.
You know, look at Luke Fickell at UC. I mean, he is a kind of guy that came in after a coach that was just widely just disparaged by the time he left. And he is interesting. He's fun. He's made this team better, a lot better. And all of a sudden, people are like talking about UC Bearcats, you know, football. I think that's pretty great.
And to that point, he wasn't the sexy name to hire either.
No one knew who he was.
Well, I mean, plenty of people did because he was right up the road.
The lay person didn't really know.
Well, I mean, he did take over at Ohio State.
But he wasn't a sexy name.
But I was going to say, that's the thing.
Not. He wasn't.
Nationally, and if you're looking to hire somebody, you know, they went with the sexy name before, and that didn't work out. So they went and hired somebody that was just going to do the job and not be that guy. That's what the Bengals need. I mean, just somebody who will come in and do the job. They don't need to go out and interview whatever the head coaching list that's going to be the hot names this coming off season.
So who are the hot names?
I don't know, but I know already Mike McCarthy's name's on there, and I'm like, that is not a name that you would want to have in Cincinnati. That would be more of the same with Marvin, if you ask me. I know people are going to point to his resume and say, well, look what he did. He had Aaron Rodgers. That's not the guy you want to come in here, and he's 55 years old. That is not a name.
So you want the young? I mean, it seems to me the most interesting teams to watch have coaches who are outside of the Patriots, who are really young, vivacious, 40-ish, a little younger than 40 in some cases maybe. They're just young
You don't
coaches.
have to go Sean McVay young, but yeah, I mean, get somebody who's an exciting,
you give me a Sean McVay, I'm going to be thrilled.
Yeah. I mean, that would be somebody that would excite the fan base easily.
I think
me
years
Sean
ago,
McVay.
often you looked at the people that say, he's a defensive guy. You better have an offensive guy now.
Right.
You want somebody who's really clever, who's really creative with the, and, you know, everybody talks about Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma now. 26 clubs or so went to his camp. NFL teams,
right?
To watch how he runs an offense, and there's a few other guys out there right there like that, because everything has changed. It's not. It's more wide open offenses.
Yeah, with the hands off of the quarterback situation, it's going to be. And if they continue that, I can't imagine them changing that in the offseason.
I mean, there's a name out there.
Get it. Come on.
Come on,
Kaiser.
It's not a popular name when you say it, but when you're talking about an offensive mind, and I mean, I don't even necessarily like the guy.
Oh, God.
And he turned down he did the whole about face with the Colts last year. But Josh McDaniels is that guy as far as I don't know if they have that whole deal behind closed doors where he's just going to take over for Bill Belichick and that whole thing. Who knows how that is? But if he gets his name back out there and is serious and not going to,
don't
take
you think
the job
he'll go
and
to
then turn
like
around.
work with an Aaron Rodgers or something like that?
Don't know, but I mean that's a name that I know people would say he's got, because he does have a little bit of a checkered history, but he's still an offensive mind that if he's a head coach, I think he's going to be successful his second time around. I don't think he wasn't the right guy for that Broncos job when he was there, but I think that he's figured that out and can be that guy going forward.
But it's an entertainment industry, so you better go out and entertain people. And they don't want 3-0 games. They want you to go up and down the field. They like this stuff now that, and you might as well.
Tanya sits here every week. She's like, I want more points. I want to see them blow on teams out.
I do.
I know, and that's what I'm
mean,
saying. That's the NFL.
You have
these
to
days.
go out and get people that play that sort of. Maybe the evaluations have to be totally different now. You saw this guy that worked against the Bengals yesterday. What, Jay Lindsey?
Joseph Lindsey.
Okay.
I think, or Philip Lindsey. Sorry. Yeah.
He's like, 5'8"? He got passed over by everybody.
He's undrafted.
and he just scooted all over the place. These are guys that maybe fit into different offenses that you didn't look at in the past.
Okay, let me ask you this then, guys. You're saying go different, go innovative, right? Mm-hmm. Break out of the box, break the mold. And then we're talking about the Bengals organization. Do those things all work?
They might. You might be surprised because I don't think Mike Brown's making all the decisions now. When Marvin was hired, he wanted from everything he wanted Tom, the old coach of the Panthers and the Giants, Tom McLaughlin. I'm failing on his name.
Oh, the one that ended up coaching the Giants.
Yeah, and coached him in a couple Super Bowls.
Tom McLaughlin.
Tom Coughlin.
Tom Coughlin.
I want to keep putting that
emphasis on
I don't know why
That's
I
not right.
the name, too.
Anyway, the story has always been that Katie and Troy are the ones that fought to get Marvin in there. He was a different choice. He was something innovative at the time. He's not anymore. And I would think that they know, okay, this is the bottom line. We're still making money. We're getting all this money from TV and that stuff. But we're losing the city. We're losing the fans coming to the game.
It's true.
We need the entertainment dollar, and we have to do more than, give away a cheap bag of popcorn or something like that. We have to have a team on the field that can do something.
Do you know there was a Groupon for Bengals tickets last week?
Is that right? Yeah. Oh, I believe it.
I mean,
To be
It
fair,
popped
it's
up on my-
2018. There's Groupons for everything.
No.
Yeah.
This is the NFL.
Yeah, but I'm guaranteeing you in other cities you can still find Groupons. I know.
Yeah,
I know it
Buffalo?
sounds.
Where? I mean, you're not finding that in other cities that have teams that are energized and excited.
Well, yeah, you'd probably have a problem finding them in New England. But...
Correct.
Okay, but that's an
All right,
outlier
I'm looking it
across
up.
the
Groupon.
league.
I'm looking up Groupon NFL
But anyway,
tickets.
you know what? Going back to the whole doing something different, if there was ever a time, the time is now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because it only takes
You gotta
one.
do it.
It only takes one time for them to go outside the box. And again, if it doesn't work, then they could always fall back on whatever. But to get the fans excited and to get them to stop saying, yeah, it's going to be more of the same, or they're just going to do this, and it's going to fit in a box, and that's why they'll hire whatever. Turn all that around by hiring a different person.
Scott, the other thing is you have to somewhere grab the younger kids.
Right.
You have
That's
to
right.
get them involved.
Yeah.
And all of them know we have kids, and all they're saying is the Bengals are terrible. They don't know. They don't know anything other.
My kids think they're terrible.
Yeah.
And I've had to explain. Really, in the past 10 years, 15 years, they've been a better than average team, and they've done real well the last few seasons, not so much. And they're like, nah, they're just terrible.
I mean, that's awful, too.
And you
because
start
that's when
losing
your
them to
kids-
other things.
That's when your kids were growing up. So that's like the prime of when they would be grasping onto the team. So if they think the Bengals
Part of that-
generally are still bad, that's terrible.
Part of that, though, is that they've grown up in Cincinnati, and Cincinnati fans are literally the most negative fans around. I mean, I think we are because I'm one of them. And they're always, oh, we're terrible, we're terrible, we're terrible. And it's not true. It wasn't true for a long time. And to say like the Marvin Lewis era, should it end, was a bad one is incorrect. It's false.
I agree with you. There were times when during that 5-year stretch when they were making it to the playoffs, I would remember going to the gas station and some guy goes, geez, that Mike Brown is so cheap. How do you say that? I mean, they had just like won the division or something like that, and they had won a big game, and you think they're going to talk it up, and they were just so sour on the Bengals. It's a reputation thing, and I think maybe that's what a new regime would change.
Yeah. No, I mean, for somebody like me who grew up during the 90s when they were awful, you would think that perception stuck with me more than, your kids, because they grew up when they were relatively good. But that's weird to me that there would be anybody who grew up, because I still have the perception it's what have you done lately? And I know they've struggled the last couple years, but there were a few years there when they were a powerhouse. And I know people want to ignore that because they didn't win the playoff game, but winning 12 and 11 and 13 games a year, that is hard to do.
By the way, on Groupon, you can get Oakland Raiders tickets at the Bengals for as low as $29.
They should be Groupon should be paying you to take Raiders
Seriously?
Bengals tickets, though.
I wonder where these
ugh.
tickets are.
What you need, though, as a fan, you need things to hold on to. You need things to remember.
Right.
You need those great games or a playoff win or just something that you
Or
went
a player that just makes you just go, gosh,
Exactly.
he's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a guy that just wrote me today, and he has a book, The 50 Greatest Games in Bengals History. And I was thinking to myself, they found 50, but I'll bet you they had to go back 50 years. A good many
like
of
last
those.
year when it was their 50th, what was it, their anniversary, and it was like all these great moments, and I was thinking, how many could there be? But no, I feel like I'm being such a curmudgeon about the Bengals. You guys know I like Marvin Lewis a lot. I really do. He's a nice man. I think he's done a great job for the city, charitably for the team. He has really, as you have said, John Popovich, he has elevated this team. We used to be the laughingstock of the NFL. However, I just think that if you're going to get the fan base back, and that's my thing, if you want the fan base back, you have got to end this reign. You have to.
And only part of it's his problem, or his fault.
It's not all his fault.
Because some guys stay healthy this year. This could be an entirely different season. He just have to be he was the victim of bad timing in a lot of cases here. The teams, lost a lot of key players. Everybody loses players, but they lost a lot of key players.
Yeah, we've talked about it multiple times on this show. You can't lose the guys that they've lost this year and expect to be competing if you're anybody. I mean, any other team in the NFL that loses their starting quarterback, one of the best wide receivers in the league. I mean, you run through their top running back, their backup running back, all these guys. It's just too much to overcome for just about any
Leading
franchise.
the league in injuries, the Bengals.
Yeah, I mean, they've had a run of bad luck, too. I mean, it's not just, these guys are terrible and Marvin and he's awful and get him out of here. I mean, they really have suffered a lot of injuries that
you might say
teams can't do.
They're not playing for him. But I thought yesterday when I was watching the game there, and I think my reaction in the first half was, hey, they're showing some pretty good pep out there.
I
the
thought so,
energy
too.
level was good. They were running to the football. They were covering, whether it was the reason that the Broncos weren't as good. But the Broncos are a pretty decent team. They're not a great team like the Bengals have played against. But they were obviously better than the Bengals.
You know who is a good team, though?
Who's that?
The Chargers.
Yes.
And you know who we
yeah.
get to play?
The Chargers.
At the Chargers.
Go Chargers.
Really?
No, I'm just making fun of Arnold Schwarzenegger. You don't remember the
no, I
Go
don't know.
Chargers Go
No.
when he was governor.
Go
Jesus.
Benader.
Google
No.
that.
I don't. But then again,
13th man.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You brought that upon yourself.
I always do. We get to play the Chargers away at the Chargers, who just beat the Steelers in a comeback victory.
I got to stop myself from saying San Diego.
I mean, it was historic in the way they came
I
back.
called them San Diego Chargers yesterday.
It was historic in the way they came back against the Steelers. Steelers have almost never lost a game that they were down by that many points. And to do that on national television last night, it was a big deal for the Chargers to be able to do that. And they have a terrific quarterback. He's been their good quarterback for a long time, and he will just drill these guys.
Well, and he doesn't. This came up in a group of friends of mine, a picture of Phillip Rivers and asking, Hall of Fame and just in general. And I was like, you know what? He's been way better than almost anybody gives him credit for. But because
he's such under the radar guy.
He came into the league with Roethlisberger and Manning, who both got their rings, and then he sat out there in San Diego and hasn't had the teams around him, and sometimes
Wasn't it
has
Peyton
failed.
Manning who got drafted to the Chargers and said no thank you?
No, it's Eli.
Eli.
That's
He
what I'm
was
saying.
Eli.
Manning and Roethlisberger and Rivers were all in the same draft class.
Okay.
And those two got their rings, and he's been the forgotten man. But if you look at his numbers and in the games he's played in, enough big games, he's fallen victim to getting into the playoffs and not winning a game. So he's that label. But overall, he's a great quarterback and has just been out there and forgotten. I don't know if he's Hall of Fame good, but he's definitely been overlooked because of who he came in with, and any other guy with his credentials would have been propped up more. But Phillip Rivers is a great quarterback, and he's expecting his 9th child. I mean, for that
What?
alone, maybe you should get
Oh,
him.
is that
He
right?
is?
Yes.
What?
Yeah, him
Same
and his
mama?
wife his wife and him announced that they're having their 9th
Whoa.
child soon. So that alone should get him in the Hall of
Are
Fame.
any of them twins? Triplets?
That I don't know. I don't think so though. But there might be one set of twins.
Might
in
get
there. But
9
definitely no
touchdowns
triplets.
this weekend against the Bengals.
Well, there's that. One for each child.
She gets the MVP.
Jeez.
Because he's never home.
I saw a headline.
No, he must be home.
He's home enough.
I saw a headline that said Rivers with wife and expected child can now field an entire offense because that would be all 11 players.
Wow. I didn't
They
know
just need
that.
2 more for 13.
Well,
There you go.
You know,
well, he
also-
should have a great day on Sunday.
Well, and what's funny is they're coming in, and I don't know if he's going to play, but they've got one of the better running backs in the league in Melvin Gordon, and he's been hurt the last couple weeks. They did that comeback against the Steelers and played that well without Melvin Gordon. So if Melvin Gordon finds a way to play this week, it could get even uglier. This could be another one of those 50 burgers.
Well,
that we're looking at.
they're also making a rise. They're playing better the second half of the season.
Which is
hey, that's funny that
traditionally-
teams do that. I've never expected to see
and the
that.
Chargers in general, that's kind of been their MO throughout the entire time Phillip Rivers has been there. They'll always start off sluggish and kind of get written off, and then all of a sudden you look up and I'm like, hey, here the Chargers have won 8 in a row and they're back in playoff contention.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to happen every year, but this year they didn't start off as slow and they've just been running through. And again, because they're in the same division as the Chiefs and the Chiefs have all been the talk. Nobody's really paid much attention
and now
to
the
the Chargers.
Chiefs have no Kareem Hunt anymore.
Well,
to
yeah.
play, and so
They're kind of falling apart a little bit.
well, they're
I don't know about falling apart, but that's one of
Well,
those things
they
where
just have
losing
some
one of the better
issues
running backs in the
over the
NFL,
past week or
it's
so.
going to notice. You're going to notice it. It's not going to go unnoticed.
That's right. You're just going to balance out the AFC a little
Right.
bit more. You know, the Patriots are good, but they're not unstoppable. The Chiefs looked unstoppable for a while. Now they're not anymore. The Chargers have moved their way up, and the Rams. Well, no, never.
No,
not the Rams.
that's
They're
NFC.
NFC.
So, honestly.
But
then you've got the Raiders, and they're very forgettable, and nobody cares about them.
I think we talked about this last week, but I'll ask quickly: will the Bengals win another game? I don't think they will this season. I think they're done. And I think remember we talked about that they were going to be. People were saying there'll be 4 and we're like, oh, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
5 and.
Yeah.
Just think.
I never thought that would be the case.
Yeah.
God has brought it up that the Raiders are terrible. and
That's the team. That's I'm still going to give them a win against the Raiders. The
All right,
Raiders
so
are god-awful.
6 and 10. You think they're going to go 6 and 10?
And you know what? If we go back and listen, I believe at the beginning of this year I said that they would have 6 wins.
I'm putting Brian Neese in charge of this.
I quickly changed my tune, but I think that was the number that I said. I might have waffled and said 6 or 7 wins, and that would be ironic. But it's not how I expected them to get to
No.
6 or 7 wins. If you had asked me, I'd
No,
have been like,
not
oh,
at
no.
all.
They would have looked ugly the entire season, not started off 4 and
You know what's
1
funny? If we do this again next year, I do want us to start with like who they'll beat. And then look back at the end of the season because I do think we would have. There are so many teams out there that we thought were going to be really good or really terrible that have, kind of.
That's
Yeah,
the
let's put
NFL
like a
in general.
whiteboard up or something
Yeah.
like that and keep our.
We need a whiteboard in the budget for next year. If we don't get fired by then.
We can
Although
spring for that, can't we?
there might be an extra one laying around here somewhere that we could borrow.
That's what they'll tell us.
So okay, we're gonna lose to the Chargers, and I think it'll be really, really ugly.
Like I said,
I'll go.
potential 50 burger.
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
I was
it's
going to go
in- it's in LA.
34-7,
Yeah, that's I mean,
but I think that's
ugly.
conservative.
That is conservative for the Chargers.
Well, you
And
know-
I think it's really, really high expectations for the Bengals to score 7,
well,
maybe 6.
You
2
don't know
field
what
goals.
this offense is going to generate anymore now.
No.
Because Driscoll shows little plays, but then he throws way over guys' head, or they don't.
He laid out a couple guys last week. I thought, oh, they're going to get crushed. They're going to
Yeah.
get their spine severed. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, 50-14 because the Bengals will score garbage time.
Okay,
I'll
50
just go on
you
to
think
say
the
that-
14 come in the last few minutes?
Yeah. No, I mean the 14 will become because they'll have the ball so much from the Chargers giving it back to them after having
Okay.
scored. So
Okay.
I do think that you're looking at the Chargers scoring 45 plus easily.
Easily. All right.
45-9, 3 field goals by Randy Bullock.
There you go.
See, that sounds about right to me. All right, I was very conservative and
and then it's what, Raiders and Browns to finish things up.
Steelers.
Steelers.
Oh, and the Steelers. Jeez.
Wait, so we have Raiders, Browns, Steelers end the season. I think.
Yeah,
I think that's how it
I was
goes.
gonna say that should be it with the Chargers this week.
And so all Raiders
3
are
of
the
the 4 on the road,
16th
yeah.
at home. I know that because I just looked at the Groupon.
And the Raiders is the one that's at home. So yeah, I still
It's the
think
last home game.
they're winning that game.
Okay, so
they're
Bengals
winning
fans,
the Raiders game. I'm
here's your
guaranteeing
ray
it right
of
now
hope
on
for
this
the week.
show.
Ray of hope. Ooh.
Raiders are the Bengals are going to beat the Raiders at home. That's all you've got left to look
And
forward
if
to.
they
this season.
don't,
If they don't, I'll be back next week or the following week saying how much of an idiot I am.
okay. So here's your ray of hope, Bengals fans. You get another home game against a team called the Raiders that you have an incredible chance to beat.
One of only 2 teams officially eliminated from playoff contention in the league.
The other one? Them
My
Niners.
49ers. Yeah.
Bat on the Bay, huh?
It is not a good year to be a football fan
You
in
need
the
to be
Bay
in
Area.
Southern California to have good football this year.
Yes.
that'll do it for us, I believe. We'll wrap up the Flying Pigskin for this week. As always, you can subscribe to the Flying Pigskin on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and Google Play. Our thanks to John Popovich, Scott Kaiser, and Brian Neese, too, who has to listen to us yap on forever. And we thank you for listening as well. I'll just do it for you, Brian. Who did?
See you, everybody.